Chloe Styler is an artist from Queensland's Gold Coast who last year won the 2024 Gold Coast Music Award for Breakout Artist of the Year. She's released several singles since 2018 and 2 EPs, Side A and Side B. Her new single is Love in a Bubble, but this conversation is not going to be focused on that song, as I really wanted to have a longer chat to Chloe because there are several strands to her artistry that I'd like to talk about and I think you will find interesting. Hello, Chloe.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And we have had several chats in the past, and every time I speak to you, I think, well, there's just so much interesting stuff going on with you. And so I wanted the chance to actually bring a lot of it together, if that makes sense. But I will start with what's most recent in your music world, which is that you have just been named Global One to Watch on Nashville's big 615 radio station, which is Garth Brooks' station. That is phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was very cool, very unexpected, but exciting nonetheless, and something that I've actually been wanting to achieve for a while. So that was really a cool moment a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that for someone who's been tracking your career for a while and thinking there are some really great things going on there, it feels like, yes, it's absolutely the right thing to say about you, that you're a global one to watch. And I'm intrigued to know where that goes next for you, because you do have a new single out, Love in a Bubble, and you've said that this is your first love song. So I'm curious about, because some people might think, oh, you've already done some love songs, but I think this is your first love song.
It is like the first definition of a love song where you're happy and positive vibes, not a breakup song, because most of my discography is breakup adjacent, which is fine. It just tends to be what I easily write. And then when it came to write Love in a Bubble, I was in a good space and I took it to my friend Ben Horsley and we just kind of talked about it, about what I was living at the time, and only positive, happy feelings came out, which is sometimes not what I get.
I guess some artists, well, writers of all kinds, whether it's books, short stories, poetry, songs, would think, oh, well, you need to have some pain in order to create art. This song proves that you don't. But I'm wondering generally if you felt that, perhaps particularly as you were developing as a songwriter initially.
Yeah, and I still do kind of feel it. It's not necessarily something that I think I have to have, but I just know that I draw upon those kinds of emotions way easier when it's time to write a song. I can tap into the sad emotions quite quickly rather than the happy emotions. And I think that's just, I don't know, not everyone's like that, but that's just me. Maybe it's because I was raised on like Taylor Swift's music and she would sing a lot about breakups. And I think it's probably just a product of what you were raised on. But yeah, I'm trying my hand at other emotions this year.
Because yes, now having written a song out of that positive place, I'm wondering I'm curious as to what it might have felt like for you. And I often talk about when I'm talking to writers and asked to give advice in my other life, I often talk about how things feel in the body when you're creating something, because we can rationalize things away. We can go into our brains and think that it should be a certain way, but then there's how it feels. So I'm curious what that felt like for you writing a happier song.
Look, we wrote it over a year ago, but from memory, I remember being like, oh, we're done. Like it happened very quickly, which I think because at the time it was very present in my mind. So it was an easy write in that regard. But I felt a little I suppose proud, like that it was something different. And I honestly, though, I didn't know what to do with it. I was quite uncertain whether to release it. And I sat on it for at least 6 months before I played the demo to my sister. And then I was just playing her heaps of music I'd been writing. And, within 45 seconds, she can say, oh, that's good or not. And I kind of listen, like I really trust her ear and her creative vision. And then she heard Love in a Bubble and she was like, that needs to come out. So then I knew, okay, I have to do something with it. So yeah, it was kind of a long drawn out feeling, trying to sit with it at different points, because then by the time now it's out, like those emotions are not present. I'm not feeling loved up in a bubble. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I suppose it must be, yes, interesting for you as an artist to think, well, that was a moment in time and I've documented it. But I am curious that you held on to it for 6 months before you showed it, well, played it for your sister,
Yeah.
because do you normally hang on to songs that long once you've recorded? No, okay.
No, so I did keep going back to it myself, just in my Dropbox, but I I didn't know what to do with it. I suppose if you recall my last 12 months, I released a lot of music. So I had heaps of releases already planned for 2024 and I was full. I couldn't fit anything else in. So I didn't know what to do with Love in a Bubble. I know I liked it. I know it was fun. I knew that it was catchy and was a different vibe for me, but I didn't know if it being a different vibe was a bad thing, you know? So I just kind of had to let it grow on me. And then once my sister heard it, and then I played it for a couple of friends and I played it for my parents, they were like, yeah, that's really fun. You should do something with that. So I was like, oh, okay. I will.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
So I would like to pause on that statement of your 2024 being full of releases, because this is the work that goes on behind being an artist, particularly when you're an independent artist and you can set your own pace. But when you're conscious of how you're timing releases, obviously there is a certain rhythm to it. And the fact that your 2024 was full suggests to me that you actually planned it at a certain stage and you thought, I
Yeah.
have these songs, I'm going to put it out. So I'd love to know a bit of that process, actually, because I'm always fond of saying people like to hear about work, and this is
Yeah.
work of you as an artist. So at what point did you plan that 2024?
In February of 2024.
Okay.
So I went to my sister again and I had already had Time Bomb planned because that came out late February. And then I knew I wanted to get as many songs out last year as I could because I was trying to do the algorithm thing where if you get a song out between every 6 to 10-ish weeks, it kind of works in your favor on Spotify and Apple Music, etc. So I'd heard that. I'd never tried it. I wanted to just connect more with people, and that means putting more music out. So I knew what I wanted to achieve, but I didn't have the money to be so transparent, to do everything I wanted, and I'm self-managed and I'm independent, so it's all up to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I went to my sister's house about a week before I was going to or was it after I no, it was after I'd been to the studio. I'd recorded 25, and I wasn't even sure at that point. I'd recorded and I was like, oh, I don't know about it. Like it felt wrong. It felt too slow or it felt too dramatic and sad and whatever. And then I played it for my sister and she was like, no, that's really good. And now it's one of my most streamed songs on Spotify, and it didn't get any like playlisting support. It's just connected organically with people. So yeah, Amy and I sat down. There was a lot of crying. I won't deny that. Like there was just, and I just felt so overwhelmed by the task at hand, but knowing that it was the right move. And then in that same day, I convinced my sister somehow to become my videographer and photographer. And then she ended up filming all my music videos for the year and taking all my photos and just being incredible. So yeah, that was a very, very productive day in February. Oh, that's what it was. Then a week after that, we literally filmed a music video for 25. We had no idea what we were doing. We'd never done it before, but she had a good camera. Like she's a hobby photographer, and it had a video setting. And so we were like, okay, let's try. And then it got to like number 7 on CMT, I think, like that. Yeah. So it was a very productive day.
Yeah, and also, and a couple of things out of that too. So when you said to be transparent, you didn't have the money, I do really think it's important to acknowledge that, because particularly in a small market like Australia, where there is just simply isn't as much money coming in. Even if we look at the social media side of things, there's no TikTok creator fund for anyone other than Americans. So it's not like you can go on TikTok and work to get your like clips of your songs to a certain level and then you might earn money that way. This is a small market. So that commitment to your art, where you would determine, like, even though yes, financially it's really tough to show up, stick with it. When did you really start to feel that? Was it actually February last year that was the moment where you thought, right, I'm just really going to stay with this?
Yeah, I think that feeling comes and goes a lot. I was having it last week. I was crying to my parents about how literally like tears about how I just want to do this, but I've got to find ways to make it happen, and I've got to be the driving force behind it. And sometimes it's just a lot and it's just exhausting. But yes, it's all of the above, but I love it. And I like, there's nothing that can replace the feeling of connecting with somebody through my music. I don't know how else, I don't know what else I would do with my life. So yes, there's tears and there's overwhelm and there's all of that anxiety, but like, yeah, I'm doing this to myself. But yeah, I'd say February last year was like a turning point where I had to make a conscious decision to like make a move essentially, and do something out of my norm, out of what I'd already been doing, just to try and shake it up a little bit. And then that was when I started releasing a song about every 10 weeks.
So I want to come back to your collaboration with Amy, but just in terms of the songs you were releasing last year, had you recorded a batch so that you were then staggering those releases?
Yeah, I had already recorded Read a Room, Call It, and Little Lady. So they were ready to go and they were mastered and literally just sitting in my Dropbox. Time Bomb was already done. And then 25, I had recorded very early on in the year because I wanted to get it out while it was still around my age. Yeah. And I knew that was last year. So yeah, I did have everything lined up and ready to go, which is, I felt very ready and like in a good position. It was just then a matter of getting the visuals, because I am very visual oriented and wanting everything to have a theme and like its own era essentially. That was the overwhelm. Not like with a music video, that's expensive to do. I think I released 5 songs last year. To do 5 music videos, oh my God, no, that wasn't gonna happen financially. So that was me then asking my sister politely to film some like the Little Lady music video. It's more of a visualizer, I suppose. Like it's just something visual to get people's attention and to show people what I see in my head when I hear the song.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that visualizers are becoming more popular. And as for me as a music fan, it's like, well, they're just as great as video, right? You don't necessarily need to have that narrative in the video. Yeah. If we are seeing where you were in your head with that song, then that's just as important.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So obviously having Amy there as a collaborator is convenient because she's your sister, but it doesn't always work necessarily. Even if you get on really well as sisters, that doesn't mean that you can collaborate on art. So I think this probably starts with you having that commitment to a visual identity from years before. When we've spoken in the past, you mentioned how you like to wear pink when you perform live, because then you're quite visible from the audience, which I actually think is a courtesy to the audience, because they can see where you are on stage and focus on you. But when did that idea of the visuals being important start? Was that from 2018 when you released your first song?
Yes and no. I think it started getting more prominent in my branding and my marketing probably around, what year would that be? 2022. I started working with a stylist. So then I really honed in on my style and feeling comfortable in what I really want to wear. So I love, like you've seen my press images and my videos, I love a puffy dress and pastels and very girly clothing, which just suits my personality like to a T. So I love that, but sometimes it's a little scary to like lean into your who you are in your fashion sense, because especially in the country industry, there's lots of denim, there's lots of jeans, there's lots of like casual graphic tees. Like I'm wearing a graphic jumper, so I'm kind of in the vibes of country today. But yeah, I just felt like a little nervous to really lean into my pastels with the country industry. But I'm glad I started working with Tamsin, my stylist, because we found a way to merge both of my personalities together, like the outgoing, bubbly, bright with my country like themes and musicality. And I think it really works. And so from 2022, yeah, I really found my footing with that, and have stayed true to that and stuck with it. And I don't work so much with Tamsin anymore. We do occasional stuff, but I've found like confidence in online shopping and finding things that work and fit and suit the vibe, etc. Yeah, so it's really fun for me. I love that.
It can be hard to stick out generally, I think, especially, we're both Australians. We have a tall poppy syndrome here still, and that means that anyone who is prepared to stick out has to be prepared also to get some flack for it.
Yeah.
But on the subject of a visual identity, every artist who breaks out in a big way has a visual identity attached to them. So if we think about any artist we know, including Taylor Swift, there's definitely an aesthetic that is attached to that. So it's that rub, I guess, for you as an emerging artist, as you have been. I would say you're emerged now, but yeah, I can totally see that it's like, well, I want to do this. It's true to who I am, but there is this other side where I could come in for flack.
I think a really cool example of that is Chapel Roan. She does it masterfully. Like, she is so cool. I've been following her since 2020 and a fan of her music since then. And yeah, I loved her music. Pink Pony Club, I was listening to that in 2020 when it came out. And I remember her visuals back then were similar, but like a subdued version of what she does now. And she wasn't doing the drag makeup. She was just wearing kind of outlandish outfits. Not even like the cover art for one of her songs was just a pink dress and she was standing in front of a car in 2020. So to me, her evolution in her visual aesthetic and her confidence within herself visually, and what she wears and how she presents herself, I think that's got a huge part to do with how she's just astronomically skyrocketed in the last 12 months, because as soon as you see a picture of her, you know who she is. Yeah. So that's really inspiring. And I feel like I kind of, in the last 6 to 12 months, maybe tried to subdue myself a little bit, but I'm done with that. Like, I'm gonna go back to what I was doing because of artists like Chapel that are just being unashamedly themselves. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, I think it is tricky to be a woman of any age, actually, and be prepared to be prominent, because we are not trained to do that. It's like, just keep yourself small, but as Fanny Lumsden would say, take up the space.
Take up the space. Yeah.
But I certainly understand that feeling of wanting to retreat a little. It's like, oh, I've gone out there, maybe I should pull back, maybe it's too much. I mean, being too much is the cardinal sin, I think, for a lot of us, or that's how it's expressed. But yeah, I mean, Chapel obviously now has a big budget as well to play with. That's part of it. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you, Chloe, to go for it in terms of visual identity.
Thank you.
And I think it is, it can be seen to be not cool to talk about a visual brand identity, because it's like, oh, but shouldn't the music find people organically? In truth, it actually rarely has. I think there's always been some kind of brand touch. Even if we look at someone like Bob Dylan, there is a purposeful dishevelment,
Yeah, they've all got something visual about, like, the big names that the icons, Elton John, his glasses. Like, there's always something about an icon visually. Yeah, so I think it's really cool that people find their own style and their own way of presenting themselves. And I've noticed it a lot, like within my friends and within Australian country. Everyone's kind of, I'm noticing everyone's kind of got their own little thing going on, which is really, I think, really cool.
Yeah. And I think, just to possibly wrap up that subject, but part of what I've thought the genius of Madonna is that she actually kept changing visual identity.
Yeah.
So what you could have thought it was a different person, apart from, well, even her hair changed color, but that was a very daring thing to do then and now.
Yeah, love her. She's awesome.
So I look forward to seeing what you're coming up with next, visual brand wise. But I'm also so interested in your songwriting, and I did write some notes about this, because one of the reasons I wanted to have a longer chat to you is because of what I've identified as almost the subtext of your songs. And that is that I think you're a specialist in bittersweet, which is what I love in stories. I'm like a sucker for bittersweet, anything. And you have this balance of yearning and acceptance, of what's going on in that story, because in none of the songs is this sense that you are wallowing. And
Okay.
it can
I
be
love
quite
that.
hard to avoid that, like it's like, because as a songwriter, you might think, oh, I really want to just, I want to wallow in this feeling and just paddle in this pool for a while longer. So I'm really interested to know where that storytelling instinct comes from, which makes me want to ask you what books you like to read as a child.
A lot of Roald Dahl.
Right.
Yeah. So as a kid, like that was a staple on my bedside table. I really loved like the young adult romance novels growing up. I
Mm.
still read young adult romance novels. And I don't know if I'm still technically a young adult, but
Oh,
according to,
adults read YA too, I can assure you.
okay, good. Yeah. I think, what else did I read? I don't know. There is one book, if you want a book, that has stuck with me. And it was, I don't, it's probably got nothing to do with my songwriting, but maybe it does. All of it does matter, or how you consume literature does then
Hmm.
result in how you express literature and how you express vocabulary. So maybe this does, but there's a book called We Were Liars by E. Lockhart that I read. I was probably 20, and there's just a twist at the end of the book that literally just gave me goosebumps again thinking about it. It's just the coolest twist I've ever read. And I've only read that book once because it's, you can't read it again, like now that you know the twist. But it has stuck with me, and that the writing in it was really cool and drew me in a lot. And I'm when I read something as a reader, I read and I don't stop until the book is done. I read the Hunger Games, the Twilight series, those kinds of books as well. But yeah, I'd say the romance topics as well were very prevalent in my bookcase. I'm currently reading one called what is it called now that I can't remember, and it's literally right next to my bed. It's by Dolly Alderton.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, and it's great. It's a really funny book, and it's romance. So that's probably helped me when I then write a romantic song.
Well, except you mentioning Roald Dahl and then next mentioning the young adult romance actually tells me where that bittersweet balance is coming from, but
Okay.
also tells me that you haven't actually gone to the extremes, because it could be argued that Roald Dahl is quite bitter, even
Yeah.
the very young books. But what you found is your own balance within that. So yeah, that's. I'm going to keep asking questions about your storytelling instincts, because you also love musical theatre.
Mm.
But your musical theatre is also about extremes for obvious reasons. So from that, you obviously like, as a reader and as someone who's performing in musical theatre, for example, to feel extremes, but in
Mm.
yourself as an artist, there's some kind of refining process that's going on. I'm actually wondering whether it's something to do with you having a degree in journalism, that you learnt to hone and edit what you were doing.
Maybe. Also, I go to therapy. So, like, if I'm just thinking of what you're saying and how I've refined, and I don't wallow and I look for like essentially a silver lining maybe in these sad stories. I go to therapy. I have for 8 years. Like I think that's a huge thing with how I've learned to understand, acknowledge, and communicate my emotions. I reckon that's probably a huge part of it.
And it's not something that a lot of people would actually admit to, I think, because they'd like people to think they're sorting out life on their own. But I do know that
Yeah.
everyone who goes to therapy that I'm aware of actually would say it's so helpful.
It's so helpful. And sometimes I go to therapy because I really need to go to therapy. But other times it's like a tune up. Like I feel like I'm just going to get my car serviced, and I need to just have a chat with someone that's not my mum and dad or something, like I just need to vent about something. I have anxiety, and I think a lot of creatives have some little quirks in that world, and I'm not ashamed at all to admit that therapy has really helped me and continues to help me, because it just, to me, helps me clear out the clutter, and then I can really get back to business, back to normal, back to everyday clarity. Because yeah, if it's all muddled up here, I'm not writing songs, I'm not being creative, I'm not even communicating nicely to people or like properly with people, like it's not conducive to who I want to be and my lifestyle if I'm not working on myself.
Was there one thing in particular that made you decide to start therapy, or you just thought it was just that? It's like, if I model, I'm not.
I developed anxiety when I was about 19. I'd already always had it. As in I was always a very worried kid, and I was very highly strung, and I didn't really know what any of that was. And then about 19, 20, I was like, ooh, panic attacks exist, and learnt about that, and didn't know what that was. And so then tried my hand at seeing someone, and it's done wonders.
Yeah, panic attacks are very unpleasant, and also not ideal if you're going to be a performing artist, I would think, because that's a high risk, potentially high reward situation, but it's a bit like being on a tightrope.
Yeah, and it's definitely helped in the long run with all of that as well. Reframing my nerves to excitement, all of that I've been working on that in therapy. So it all matters, and it all has helped with my artistry and my musicianship, I think.
Yeah. But still as a question about the journalism degree is I'm wondering if it helps you select the stories that you want to tell, because obviously when you're trained to be a journalist, you're being trained to look for stories, to shape stories, to communicate stories to people. So, and perhaps all of that for you as an artist is not just choosing them, but refining them and as an editorial process, and also wanting to communicate to others.
Yeah, I think finding the angle is something I'm luckily good at, because I have the journalism degree. And I do find myself, if I'm writing a song and I don't know where it's going, and I can I just pull that face, I just know I literally verbally say, what am I trying to say? What am I actually trying to say right now? And then I go back to the start and I figure out what am I trying to say. And there's literally recordings of me on my voice notes app, where I say, what am I trying to say? And that just pulls me out of the little circle I was in, going round and round and round and round, and not actually getting anywhere. So that helps definitely.
Because you also have a degree in business management, which sounds like a great idea for someone who's a self-managed artist. But some people might think is at odds with the actual impetus to be an artist. It's too left-brained, whereas being an artist is right-brained. Have you ever felt that it's internally a tug between those parts of yourself?
I majored in marketing, so that's still quite creative. And I am very grateful I majored in marketing, because it helps me every day. Even today, this morning, I was on Canva creating a poster for an event I'm putting on next month. And then I was creating visual assets for it. And yeah, I obviously I could still use Canva if I didn't have a marketing degree, but it all helps. And yeah, I've never really felt a tug. No, I think because I majored in marketing, I suppose if I majored in finance or economics, I think it would be entirely different. But I would never have done that because I didn't like economics.
I think having the marketing background is an incredible skill. And obviously, well, not obviously, but I would imagine is part of why you're so aware that visual brand identity is important. Would you recommend for other independent artists that they get some kind of education in marketing, even if it's just a short course online?
Yeah. Even a YouTube video, just do what you can to your ability, but marketing literally comes in handy every single day. I obviously don't do SWOT analysis for my for my music, but I do constantly think about, okay, how is the best way to represent my brand? It's a brand. A musician is also trying to get their brand out there. So yeah, it's always in the back of my mind. So yeah, if you have the means, look it up on YouTube or go to a TAFE course or something. But I don't know. If I had my time again, I don't know if I would have gone to university for 5 years. I went for 5 years. That's a long time. But I may have found other ways to do it and still gotten the same outcome.
Because I do find, given that in my day job, I work in book publishing, so I'm seeing both sides, books and music, and I do think there's a bit of a tension at the moment for artists of all kinds who are thinking, well, I don't really want to have to be bothered with marketing. I would like someone else to do it for me. Obviously, when you're an independent, self-managed artist, you are necessarily doing it for yourself. But there's also a sense I can feel of people thinking, well, why is it so important now? But it has always been important. It just seems like it's more obvious because of social media.
I think it's it's always been important, and I'm not an expert on this topic at all, but just one of my theories might be that back in the day, it was someone's job to actually market them, and at the record company. But now the rise of the independent artist and the ability to just do it all yourself on TikTok and social media, and upload to DistroKid, and then there's your song. Mm-hmm. There's more people doing it. There's more people doing it independently. So therefore there's less actual people doing the job that once existed. So now you've got to take on all the jobs. I don't know. Maybe, does that make any sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it used to be outsourced.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm independent. So I understand that either I do it myself or I outsource and I hire a social media manager or a content creator and I get them to deal with it.
Yeah.
But for myself, know that I have a very specific way I want to be coming across on social media and in my, my marketing assets and my graphic design and stuff. So I take control of it. But I know some people that do bring people on board for social media content creation and management. So there is ways to outsource it still if you're independent.
Mm-hmm. Given that you have been independent since the start, and I think this is a question for a lot of artists these days, but particularly for you, when you have all these different skills and you are shaping your career quite mindfully, do you ever think that having a label would be a great idea? Like, is it, because I would also think it's kind of tiring for you doing all of this.
Yeah, it can be tiring. It can be overwhelming, but I'm still doing it and I love it. But yeah, it's in my goals to start working with a label. I'm not sure when that will be. I would love that. It would be really cool. It's something I've always dreamt of. Also would take the load off a lot and give me an opportunity to just be the artist. But its time will come.
Yeah. I have every confidence actually because I use that word mindfully deliberately, because I do think there's a difference between kind of a cold-blooded calculation about some things and being mindful about how you do things. And mindfully doing things means having the information, knowing what to do with it because you have a particular impetus, I think. So my impression of you as an artist is your impetus is not, oh, I just want to try to get to the top of the charts and make a lot of money or whatever it is. There's something else there. So I'm wondering what you feel or what you think or believe your impetus is.
Oh, big word. Can you define impetus?
Sorry, your motivation.
My motivation. Okay. Yeah. My motivation is just that I love the feeling of connecting with somebody one-on-one through my music and helping them through something. That's my motivation. It's the people. It's not the fame and the fortune and signing to a record label. It's oh my goodness, I want to feel like I've done something with my life and made a difference. And I know how, when I was 16, how much music meant to me, and connecting with a female artist through her lyrics, Taylor Swift, I felt heard and I felt seen and not alone. And like, your experiences aren't unique, and that's a good thing. Like, there's people out there that are feeling the same thing that I felt, or something similar, or had a similar experience, and they're thinking the world is crashing down around them, or something, a boy's been mean or something. But it's okay, because I've lived it, I've written about it, and I'm through it. And if I can show that to a young girl, oh my God, like, that's it. I'm done. I'm happy. And she can feel better for it. Like, that's totally that's the whole reason I do this.
Now I'm just going to lean over while we're talking, because I've got an Apple speaker on and Siri has picked up on something. Unplugging it. So
okay.
Interrupted, because I don't know if you heard that. I was like, oh no.
Oh no, that's okay. It always happens.
I usually unplug that earlier. Yeah, so in the brace of songs you released last year, I just could feel this something was developing. And so it was Read a Room, Call It, and Little Lady. And I felt that they were of a piece in a way, but it was like this storytelling piece moving you on. And there's a line in Read a Room that just said to me that you'd reached a philosophical point in life. And so just in terms of you feeling that connection with an audience and hoping that they see things in your songs, and the line is, I can break it to myself in Read a Room. And as soon as I heard that and then listening to it again, like there is so much behind that line. There is pragmatism and acceptance. And also, I think, to your point about a teenage girl hearing your lyrics and feeling some connection and reassurance in it, there's self-regard in that, actually. It's like this really settled sense of knowing who you are and knowing what you want and just saying, you know what, I'm an adult and it's okay.
Yeah, that is something I've been working on. And I think if you're 16, you're probably not very self-assured and you etc. But I think if there's young girls out there hearing that it's going to be okay, like if you get ghosted, like Read a Room is being ghosted, if you get ghosted, it's not the end of the world. You are able to, I was at least, pick myself up and keep going. And I think that just comes with time and maturity and experiences and yeah, growing up. But if I can impart that wisdom through my lyrics and maybe help some girls out while they're still going through it, then great.
Yeah. When you wrote that line, was it a thought you actually already had about how you could break things to yourself, or did it come out in the writing process, if you can remember?
Oh, so we wrote Read a Room from the saying, I can read a room, that I kept saying to my friends when this guy was ghosting me. It's a true story. And I was like, he is so lucky I know how to read a room. Like I can tell he's not interested or into me. And then that's where the I can break it to myself came in. It was like, I can tell you're not into me, bro. Like, I know you don't like me.
Yeah.
I can break that to myself. Can you just be a decent human being and acknowledge my existence and say goodbye? That's kind of where that lyric came from, if that's how I was speaking to my friends. But within that though, like 5 years ago, I might not have been that self-assured and even realized that someone wasn't interested in me. Like I might have not caught on and been waiting and then thought it was all my fault that he wasn't interested in me. But it's never a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. How they handle a situation like that. So yeah.
So Little Lady is a companion song in a way, because there are also no apologies in that, really. And we talked about it at the time, and I love the whole framing of that song, which was claiming femininity in a way. It was actually saying, you know what, I'm a little lady, and I'm going to be here in this form, and I don't want to change for you, and you're going to have to react to that and deal with that. But in the no apologies part of it, in not saying in that song, it's my fault for misreading things, you still hold out hope for a future you want, for a relationship, for a life that's how you want it. And I really love that, hearing that in the song, because it's again this no apologies thing, but also there's no arrogance in what you do. There's no sense of, well, you know, I'm just perfect the way I am and you're just going to have to like it or lump it. It's actually, no, I am a defined human being. Again, back to this idea of being an adult. I'm a defined human being. I'm stating what I want quite clearly, and these things are happening, and I'm giving you this response to them, but I'm going to steer the course. So philosophically, that suggests to me that, yes, I know you've gone to therapy, but also separately doing some thinking about what life you want and actually how you go about getting that.
Yeah, I think back to when I wrote Little Lady. I was sitting on my bed and I was about to FaceTime my best friend Jenny Mitchell, and I started writing a song, and Little Lady started happening. And at the time, I was grappling with, I was seeing this person. It was very long distance. I didn't know where it was going, but I knew that inside there was turmoil. Like I was struggling with the fact of uncertainty. And something with me is I don't like uncertainty. So I try and find certainty wherever I can. And so writing that song gave me clarity, at least for how I was feeling. Because before I wrote it, I didn't know how I was feeling. But as I started getting the lyrics out and feeling like sitting with my emotions, I could tell, okay, yeah, I need more from whatever this situation is. I need clarity, I need communication, all of these things. And I can tell that if I don't get that, I'm going to shut down. And because that's what like Little Lady is like, I'm going to overthink everything. But I know that I do that. So I was acknowledging that I do that. And I think that, yeah, again, just comes with growing up. I know I need to work on it, but at least with Little Lady, it was like, I do this. If you're ready to step up and be a part of it, great. If not, again, let me know. It's just the theme of people not letting people know these days. But again, that's, I Can Break It to Myself could come into play in that song. Like yeah.
Just you said then that, you know, you need to work on overthinking things, but partly what I find about this stuff is, do you? Because these days there's also this tendency to pathologize things that are actually part of a personality. And if we thought about it differently, if we actually thought, well, that is who I am, it's not going to change, and I actually don't want to change it, because the overthinking, in your case, for example, has got you to some great places. I would argue that the overthinking is actually why you've been able to write such great songs. It's why you've been able to create a visual identity. It's why you've got yourself to Nashville on several occasions, because your brain has been revving in a certain way to think of that.
Yeah, I think there's a point where overthinking is helpful, and then for me anyway, it can become debilitating, and it can like seep into my everyday, and I can just really ruminate on things. So there's a fine line for anything, I suppose. And yeah, that's what I mean by like, I need to work on that. As in, sometimes I just need to step out of my head and also step out of my house and go for a walk, and that will help.
I should also add, I say this as a fellow overthinker, so I do understand.
Yeah, and so many people have come to me since Little Lady being like, I'm the same. And I'm like, yeah, we exist. We know what we're doing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to be an overthinker. It's just acknowledging your limits as well, where it's like too much.
Yeah. Yes, I do understand that as well. So you mentioned Jenny Mitchell. I actually did not know that you were bestie.
Yeah, we did the Junior Academy of Country Music together a very long time ago in Tamworth. That's where we met, and then just stayed friends.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Junior Academy is for people who are under 18 rather than 18 and under. So that's delightful, actually, that you two connected there and you're still friends.
Yeah, a long time ago. And then obviously she just kept coming back to Tamworth every year because she's from New Zealand. And I went to New Zealand a couple of times, and we just FaceTime, and now she's in Melbourne. So I'm very happy.
Yeah. And also in and out of Nashville, which leads me to my next question, because your next EP is produced by Luke Wooten, who works in Nashville. You have been going back and forth a bit to Nashville. And I would think, or I'd imagine, that there is a bit of attention for you as an artist who has these skills, this capability, this clear-eyed sense of what you want and where you might go, to be here in Australia where the market is smaller. There's probably some agility here because it's smaller, but it's not the Northern Hemisphere. They're just simply fewer people. So how do you start to think about, you know, you mentioned goals earlier. How do you start to think about those goals and how you might achieve them when there is a geographical element like that?
It's hard because like 15-year-old me's goal was to be in Nashville. Like that was the goal, and it still is the goal. It just may have changed a little bit. So in the last 2 years, I've been to the States 4 times, and I've done self-funded trips to Nashville to write and record and meet with people and connect and build my own little life over there, essentially. And that is so cool. Like, I've done that all by myself. And if 15-year-old me knew that, well, she'd think we've made it, you know, like that is, so I'm like readjusting and moving goalposts as I go to work with that. The geographical thing is hard because I love Nashville. I love my producer. I love my friends there. I go to Pilates there. Like, I do things that feel like a life in Nashville, but the Gold Coast is home, and I love my family, and I love Australia, and I love the Australian country music scene. So yeah, that is where I feel a tug, to use your words from earlier with the business mind. I feel a tug geographically, because I don't know where I want to be, and that's a bit tough.
Yeah, it's tough and it's unsettling, and I do think, this is something that artists who are from the United States or even from the United Kingdom don't really have to think about. And I think that the friction of it can be great for artistry, actually, because you're understanding that there are compromises you need to make and there are decisions and all sorts of things. But yeah, I don't know that there is an easy solution for Australian artists or Australian country music artists in particular.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially those that are like interested in the US market, because there are artists in Australia that don't have that desire, and that's amazing. But my desire is the United States. And it just always has been, which is a scary thing to say and can maybe get me in some hot water or something. I don't know. But I just always had that big dream, and I blame it on Taylor Swift. I love her, but like seriously, I keep bringing her up. But growing up in the era of Taylor Swift's music just set the bar really high, because she just is amazing, and also made you believe that anything is possible. So yeah, I think in regards to like geographic stuff, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I've got a really good system set up where I go over and I get to write and fill my cup up with inspiration and bring it home and play shows here and connect with people here. And yeah, because here is home. But you don't know what the future holds. But for now, I'm content with my setup.
Yeah, you said you might get into hot water for saying it, and I think that's kind of a product of this weird reverse cultural cringe that goes on sometimes, which is that we still have a cultural cringe, which has been going on for decades, which says, oh, well, our stuff's not as good as the stuff of the Northern Hemisphere. But within country music, I do perceive that there is this kind of reverse cultural cringe, which is if you want to go to Nashville, what's wrong with you? And why aren't you satisfied with being here? So I completely acknowledge what you're saying. But I also want to acknowledge the big dreams, because it can be hard to vocalize those too and actually claim them for yourself.
Yeah, I think, as cliche as it is going to sound, you only get one life, and you may as well honor whatever dream you dreamt up that you thought that would be really cool to do one day, and it still is stuck in your mind. You owe it to yourself to try and honor it. And that's just how I've been brought up. So I'm very grateful to my parents for that, for teaching me that anything is possible. You can do anything you set your mind to. So yeah, sometimes it's a bit overwhelming being like, oh, I still want to do that, but okay, just let's try and figure out a way to do it with where we're at now. And I think it's just a matter of moving goalposts and adjusting.
Mm-hmm. Because as you said, 15-year-old Chloe, who had that dream of being in Nashville, would be very satisfied with what's going on now. So I'm wondering at which point you felt that the dream was shifting, actually, that you had reached 15-year-old Chloe's dream goals. And then,
Yeah.
like, oh, I need something different now.
That would have been 2023 when I got put on CMA Fest lineup.
Okay.
I made a conscious effort of sitting in that achievement and acknowledging that, oh my God, like I've done it, like seriously, 15-year-old me would be like, so we're retiring now. Like and it's so funny to think of now, because that was nearly 2 years ago. And there's so much more else now that I want to achieve. And I keep finding new things to add to my my goals list. But that was a really cool moment. And then only a few months later, I went back and I played the Bluebird Cafe, which, again, even now, me, current present me, is like, we can retire. Like, that's so cool. And just, yeah, acknowledging that dreams are happening and coming true, as cliche as that sounds, but it's okay to make new ones as well.
Absolutely. And you did all of that, CMA Fest, Bluebird Cafe, everything you're doing now, as you said, self-managed. So there would be a perception, I would think, for some people, perhaps those outside of the industry, that in order to get onto those sorts of stages, you need to have a manager. How much of your time and your brain space is taken up with the management side of things?
Oh, all the time. all the time. Yeah, that's one thing I'm working on being present and not living in my head, because I can often find myself constantly being like, okay, so now we need to make this asset to post, to promote this, to do this, to contact this person, to email this person. And it's just never, it's just always going. But I have gotten better at switching off as I've gotten older and going, okay, well, whether I think of this at 9 p.m. or 7 a.m., it's not going to matter, you know, just turn it off and go to bed and think about it tomorrow. But yeah, I would love a manager, and that's, to be transparent, that is something that I think I'm ready for, and it's time, and it's just going to assist me in just bettering my artistry, because then I can take the load off, because it's a big load to self-manage yourself in one country, and then I'm trying to do it in two. So it's a lot.
Well, because as far as I can tell, it's not as if there are that many educational resources for artists to learn how to self-manage.
Not really. There are things available, and courses you can do, and funding you can receive, and mentorships you can be a part of. And I've been fortunate to have some of those things happen for me. But at the end of the day, it's you got to do it yourself, and you got to figure it out. But there are incredible people in the industry that offer their time. I know Fanny Lumsden only recently offered mentorship sessions because she's self-managed.
Yeah.
And she just played Glastonbury, you know, so she's incredible. But to be able to sit down with someone like her and pick her brain would be invaluable. I should have done it. Actually, I should have signed up to do that. I don't know why I didn't. Would be so amazing and priceless to sit with someone who's successfully self-managing themselves.
Yeah, because it is. A few minutes ago I mentioned the left brain, right brain thing, but I think that comes, and whether that's actually a real distinction now or not, I think there's been some writing about how maybe left brain, right brain thought there's no such thing, but there is a tension, I would imagine, in terms of your time and the rhythm of your activity between the management stuff and the creative work, because those rhythms aren't the same at all. One's probably more staccato than the other. There's more of a flowing rhythm to writing and creating videos, for example. So in terms of how you manage your time, do you tend to honor that sense in your day? Like, okay, I know that right now I can't focus on writing. I'm just going to do those very short tasks that management involve.
Yeah, I constantly keep a to-do list, and I kind of tick it off in order of most important and most pressing. So if there's nothing pressing on my to-do list, then I can write a song or I can film content. But sometimes that's pressing. So yeah, it is honestly just a matter of what needs to be done right now. And if it is done, great. Now I can be creative.
So you had your 2024 planned from February last year. 2025, have you mapped that out to its extent?
It's changing. I wish I could say, yeah, sorted, done, woohoo, I know what I'm doing for the next 12 months, but it's actually not. It's not as crystal clear as last year. And there's a few things that I really want to achieve. And obviously there's a body of work coming, but then even then I'm like, oh, should I put more music into this body of work and make it an album? You know, like there's all these thoughts that are happening. So yeah, I know what I am doing for the next few months till July, and then it's kind of may shift, may not, but may shift. I'm just in that process of planning, and also forward planning, because yes, this year exists, but so does next year. And what do I want to do next year, and where do I want to be with my music, and what do I want to have released this year for next year? There's just so many uncertainties that I don't know, and I don't like that because I love certainty.
Well, I think it's also a great insight into the process of planning releases so that they can build towards something. It's not a haphazard process for you. Not that I'm saying it is for other people either, but it's clear that you want to do the best by your work and by making sure it's released in the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm glad I did the 5 singles last year. I don't know if I could do that again.
Right.
It was a lot. And also, they're standalone singles, so they're not going anywhere. And I just really want to create something. I'm ready to create something that people can hold or people can digest for 45 minutes and not just a standalone single.
I'm pleased to hear that because I think the last time we chatted, you said the reason why you hadn't made an album already is because you didn't think that you had enough to say necessarily.
Yeah, I was really nervous, and I still am nervous. And I didn't know if I had enough to say. But I think I'm getting to a point now where I do, and I have lived enough. And the cool thing is it's not one and done. You don't do one album and you never do another one. Like, you got to start somewhere. So I can start with where I'm at. I can sing about what I know now, and then in 3 years or whatever, when I do another one, then I'll have grown, and there'll be more things to sing about and talk about and relate with people. And that's cool. I'm kind of, I've shifted into a positive mindset about the A word, because I was really scared about it for a while.
As I said, I'm very glad to hear that there might be an album. Thinking of 15-year-old Chloe, if you could tell her something now, if there was something that you would have wanted to hear at that age, because there may be a 15-year-old artist or around that age listening, what would you tell her?
Oh, that is a really good question. Um, oh, like, I could say something like, you know, don't go to uni, focus on your music and stuff like that. But I think the key thing I've learned, and I'm still learning, is everything happens how it's meant to, and it gets you to where you get to when you're meant to. So, okay, if we're going to say one thing, 15.
It doesn't have to be one. It
No,
can
I
be
know.
anything you like.
I like packaging it. Comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah, and that is huge, and still something that I every day have to remind myself. So, and that's where I was getting with, you get where you're meant to, when you're meant to, how you're meant to, and everybody's running their own race, and you shouldn't feel like you're falling behind because somebody's getting somewhere else before you or anything like that. I mean, my song 25 really encapsulates that idea of comparison is the thief of joy, and just doing your own thing. So that is what I would just send her, that song, actually.
Right. Well, I have the feeling that 15-year-old Chloe would be very, very proud of you. And hopefully you're proud of yourself. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, because hopefully we will talk again when you have new music out, because I know you do have some plans for that. So Chloe Styler, as ever, a joy to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.